Hi, I'm Effie, and this is going to be my House of Flame and Shadow video. I'm actually doing this a little different than normal in that I'm filming my intro after I've finished reading the book, because I thought I'd do intro, spoiler-free thoughts, then vlog, then I'll do like closing remarks. This isn't a speech, but yeah, that's the format for this video. So first off, House of Flame and Shadow is the third book in the Crescent City series by Sarah J. Maas. Sarah J. Maas is somewhat of a controversial figure, and I will have a video going up about that. I had planned or hoped to have it up before this video, but life somewhat got in the way. But I'm hoping, assuming I don't crash too hard after spending the last 18 hours reading Flame and Shadow, I'm hoping to get the, talking about what makes Sarah J. Maas a bit of a controversial figure. I'm hoping that'll go up at the weekend. I'm so sorry if I'm scattered. As I've just said, I've spent the last 18 hours reading this book, and I did sleep yesterday during the daytime a bit, but I haven't been to sleep yet. So without going too much into depth about that today, essentially Maas is quite tight-lipped about her personal opinions most of the time. She has made some comments a few times in the past, but in recent years it's as if she's listened to Aaron Burr from Hamilton's advice and talk less, smile more. So it's hard to know if she's changed and evolved, but regardless, not regardless, you know. But as I say, that's a conversation for another day. But also feel free to discuss in the comments of this video if you want to discuss the issues that there are surrounding Maas. So as I said, this video is going to start with a spoiler-free review. So I have just finished it. Oh, also heads up, there may be spoilers for other Sarah J. Maas books in this video, so it's a spoiler warning not just for Flame and Shadow, but for everything except Catwoman Soul Stealer. Spoiler warning against this video. Right. My spoiler-free thoughts. Overall, I had a good time with it. I think the way I describe Maas's books are that they're like empty calories. You don't get much out of them, but they're really enjoyable to read. I don't know what it is about them. I think because they are somewhat simplistic and they largely revolve around themes of found family, they are something that are easy to get sucked into and to just read in general. And this book was no different than other books that Maas has written in that sense. I did find it somewhat repetitive at times, as this is a multi-POV story, so I think we have at least 3 different POVs at the start of the book, so we're jumping around from person to person. And what ended up happening is that person 1 would have information about a thing in their POV, so you'd find out the information from them, and then person 2 would get the same information from someone different in their POV, so you'd be getting the same information again, and then person 3 would also get that information from a different source, so you were getting the same information, again and again, and I found it very repetitive. There's also a particular phrase that is basically meaningless, that is repeated way too much in this book. Like, for some reason, every time a particular I guess like decision or turning point happens, this same phrase is repeated, and I found it really annoying. um I will say that this book does a really good job of bringing readers in and catching them up. You know, I don't know if I've said on my channel, but I've definitely said when chatting to other people about Maas's books that it would be pretty awful if, to understand everything that happened in this book, you had to have read and remembered everything from Maas's previous 15 books. And I think this book did a really good job of bringing readers in from all points. And I also think it did a good job of, even if you hadn't just reread Crescent City 1 and 2, you were very quickly brought into the story and reminded of what has happened previously, and that felt seamless. What else to say about this book? I found it a little slow paced. I think there were a lot of moving parts to this book, so it took a while to get to places, but compared to the likes of Kingdom of Ash or A Court of Wings and Ruin, I felt like it balanced the battle scenes, which I'm not particularly a fan of, with the politicking and the manoeuvring. And I thought this book did a good job of surprising me. There were multiple points in the book where I was like, this came out of nowhere, but in a way that made sense within the logic of the book. But I just hadn't seen that particular turn of events coming, and I appreciated. I do think this book lacked a little bit of gravitas or emotional weight. I do think that overall, my experience with books that Maas has written is that the emotional weight isn't necessarily there. That's not to say this book didn't have emotional moments and I found myself tearing up in places, but there's a certain heaviness that this book didn't have, and considering the supposed stakes of everything that was happening, somehow it stayed very light, and I'm not sure I loved that. Although, to be fair, like, this book is pretty much exactly what you'd expect from a book by Maas. But I also think, as much as Maas's books exist within a shared universe, I'm not sure if it's multiverse, universe, whatever, but the books exist within a shared space. So you are going to have themes cropping up again and again. But in particular, there was a moment towards the end of the book that was very reminiscent of the ending of another one of Maas's books. And I don't know, like, I literally finished this book less than an hour ago. So I'm not 100% settled on how I feel about it. But, you know, I overall had a good time with it. And it was pretty much exactly as I'd expected. I think that it paid off a lot of the things I wanted to see, but it still left some questions open, which I think makes sense because I believe there are going to be more Crescent City books, but this book nicely closes out the first arc of this story. And I'm very interested in seeing what happens with some of the open threads that have been left in this book. And when I say there are open threads, that's not to say anything feels incomplete, just that you can see where things might go. But yeah, that is my thoughts. Now let's get into my spoilery vlog, although I will say it's more a collection of random thoughts I had as I was reading the book, but hope you enjoy. Hey, so I'm going to start reading this book in bed because low motivation. Also, I'm starting it at midnight, so why not be extra cozy and read it in bed? I don't know. I have pre-ordered the ebook, hence how I can start reading it at midnight, but I've also pre-ordered the audiobook, so the plan is for the first 8 hours, so I'm hoping to get through about 200 pages in those 8 hours, like based on my reading speed, that's what I should get through. So for the first 8 hours, my plan is to read the ebook, and then at 8 o'clock, I think it's 8 o'clock when the audiobook drops, at 8 o'clock, switch to the audiobook and be a bit more active and do some stuff. So did I say it's a little before midnight? I can't remember. But before I dive into the book, before the book becomes available, I just wanted to talk about kind of questions that I'd like to see answered, and just moments I'd like to see. So the first one that I'd really like to see would be an interaction between Bryce and Helion. I think that would be really fun to see. And I especially would like to see Bryce with the Pegasus. And I think it would make sense because the Pegasus originate from the Dusk Court, and that's where the Starborn power is believed to originate. So like it makes sense that Helion and the Pegasus would have a part to play. Do I think we're actually going to get that? I don't think so. I have concerns about the amount of things that still need to be wrapped up in this book. Like, is this going to be the final book in the series? Is it going to wrap everything up? I don't know. Like, even if it isn't the final book in the Crescent City series, like, I'm hoping it wraps up the arc for now. Is Hunt gonna survive? Like, I feel like that's a fairly, like, common theory that Hunt was Bryce's mate, and, like, so usually Maas does, like, the endgame romance is never the first one, but she switched it up so that the first romance, Hunt, is actually endgame in this book. So, like, I wonder if that means he actually won't survive, and I think that would be interesting. It's also something that I feel like is missing, is that emotional weight. Like, yes, Maas has character deaths, but they're not usually like big significant ones, so it'd be nice to have something that really packs some emotional damage. I've got a note that the Valg are similar to the Daimati. And there's also visual similarities between the Wordhounds and Rhys's beast form. Also, the Valg are similar to the Asteri. I don't think the Valg are Asteri, and I don't know if we're going to see a connection, because beyond the fact that we know the shifters in Crescent City originated in the world of Throne of Glass, I don't think we're going to have a crossover. Like, maybe we have a 3-way crossover, but I'm not actually expecting much in the way, if anything, of a Throne of Glass crossover in this book. Speaking of Throne of Glass, I don't know if Fenris's surname is actually Moonbeam, but I just thought that would be hilarious if that's actually Rhys's surname, and that was the reveal. I know there's also speculation that in this book we're gonna get a surname reveal for Rhys. I'm not sure if we will. I don't think his surname's gonna be Dannon. I know a lot of people are saying they think it's Dannon. I think if anything, Asriel's surname is going to be Dannon. I think there's an even chance that Rhys's is Starborn, but I don't know, honestly. It's like a minute to midnight, so I'm going to be talking as it arrives. Oh, it's now midnight. Can't see it, but it is midnight. So let's like wrap up. Oh no, my timer won't go off. There we go. Let's wrap up my things. What else have I got to say? In Throne of Glass, when Aelin kills all the gods, someone says, is there a hell realm that sits vacant now? As far as we know in Crescent City, all 7 of the princes are still in existence. But maybe one of the princes did get killed, or maybe the person that they think is Hel in Throne of Glass was actually one of what we know as the Asteri, because we already know the Asteri have pretended to be Aidish during Sky and Breath, so maybe what we're going to see is, like, again, not a massive crossover, but maybe it turns out that the gods from Throne of Glass were actually Asteri, and that's who, like, Aelin essentially cast out. And then other quickfire questions. Who's Hunt's father? Love to know that. What's the connection between Adis and Jessica? What did the Oracle's prediction to Rune mean? Like, it could mean he dies, it could mean Bryce becomes the Autumn Queen. Like, I need answers. Will anyone retrieve Victoria from the bottom of the sea? What's the deal with Hel and the princes? Like, are they good? Are they bad? And what's Fury's deal? I'm sure there's other things that I've forgotten now, but I'm so hyped, so I'm going to jump in since it's midnight now. Okay, first we update. So I'm only on the first chapter. I've got through the prologue. It's whatever. I have concerns about, like, I guess we think Lydia and Rune are mates. Like, we've known this since Sky and Breath. But, like, how do they come back from the fact that, like, Lydia's been torturing him? Like, that makes me think both of them are not going to survive. But anyway, I'm on the on chapter 1, and, like, Bryce is being interrogated by, I mean, if you're watching this, you've probably read the book, but Bryce is being interrogated by Rhys and Amren, and they're very much, like, doing a nice, gentle, I can't remember the name of it, but, like, there's a name for it when, like, you do, like, an interrogation, but you're being nice with it. So they're being gentle and stuff, and, like, Bryce is doing her thing, like, spewing absolute garbage. And, like, she's saying all this, and then Az just chuckles and is like, you're lying. And it got me cracking up, because, like, obviously these shadows are telling him that she's lying, but just Az being snarky as always, like, it's so fun. Also, like, of course this is how they're going to react, but, like, it kind of it kind of took me aback, because I didn't expect them to, like, interrogate, because everything that we saw of them in Akatar was, like, they're super friendly, super, like, problem solving, and now they're like, no, Bryce is a threat, we need to get answers out of her, we need to take her to the interrogation pits in the Court of Nightmares. And it's like, I should have expected it to go this way, but I didn't, and I'm really enjoying it. We're still in the interrogation, and, like, I'm finding it slow, but, like, I get why they're doing it. Basically, what Maas is doing here is she's recapping what happened at the end of Sky and Breath and also bringing together the disparate threads that we've seen in other books, particularly in Silver Flames. So I think the thing is, like, it makes sense to do this because, like, I've said to people these past few weeks, because, like, everyone's been rereading, like, all of Maas's work and stuff, but, like, if a book requires you to have read 15 books before getting to this point to understand what's going on, it's not very well crafted. So, of course, like, Maas is putting in, like, yes, this thing that was mentioned in Silver Flames is this thing that's relevant to Crescent City, blah, blah, blah. So, like, I get why it's doing all that, but because I've literally just come off a reread, I'm like, okay, get to the point. I want to, like, get into the action, but also it's gonna take some time because it's a long book. But, like, I do appreciate what she's doing. I'm just like, okay. Can the story start yet? I has concerns. So I'm on to chapter 2, and Ariadne and Tharian are having a conversation, and Ariadne goes, you throw around your attraction to females quite a bit. I'm starting to think it's a shield. Please don't tell me that they're gonna make Tharian closeted queer and, like, that's why he's such a massive flirt. Like I'm all for more and more characters being queer, but it's the way that the queerness is represented. Like, seriously? This is 17 if you include Catwoman. Like, this is 17 books in. Like, hopefully by this point you can write a better queer character, maybe? I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but doesn't feel good. Okay, this is just a little point, but, like, I literally read House of Sky and Breath like 3 days ago, I think. Maybe slightly more than that, but, like, I read Sky and Breath really freaking recently. And this is twice that Hunt and Bryce have referred to themselves as husband and wife, and I'm like, since when? When did they get married? Like, I know it was meant to be like a whole, like, fiance thing, but oh, I've got the Kindle edition. I can look it up. Let me have a look now. 'Cause I could have sworn they weren't actually married. Come on. Searchy search. What am I looking for? Engagement, I think? For search engagement? Sorry, I'm, like, trying to balance my camera and my Kindle. Right, engagement. I'm trying to find where, like, Bryce makes her move. Okay, I've, like, just scrolled through Sky and Breath quickly, and it's never stated that they're married. And because in both the world of Throne and Glass and the world of ACOTAR, like, mating is a separate thing from marriage. So the fact that Bryce and Hunt are referring to themselves as husband and wife is something that wasn't established in Sky and Breath. So it's like we've just jumped a few steps. Like, I'd be down with it, them having done something sneaky, like, Rhys and Feyre do, in that, like, are they technically married? I think they're technically married. At the end of Mist and Fury, like, I'd be down for, like, them sneakily getting married and then being like, oh yeah, by the way, we got married, he's my mate, blah, blah, blah. But, like, at no point is it established they're married. It's just all of a sudden in Flame of Shadow, it's like, oh yeah, actually, we're married and what? Like, it's a bit of a weird continuity jump. Like, I know it's not actually a continuity thing, but like it's annoying me. So it's about 20 to 3 now, and I'm at the 11% mark, which is the start of chapter 7. And I would say that I'm overall enjoying it. I do think it feels a bit slow paced, but I think part of that is because I am inherently a slow reader, so it's going to feel like it's taking time. Also, adding to that when I was rereading the Maas books over the past month, I was using the audiobooks, so I was getting through them at a much quicker pace. Like, I'm talking about 10 hours to get through a Crescent City book, which is significantly less than it would take me to read this with my eyes. Like, I am apparently at page 87, so I'm reading it a bit faster than I thought I was, but you know, we're looking at maybe like 35 pages an hour. So, oh my gosh, my brain does not want to do those numbers. So 20 hours would be 600. Like, let's round it up and say it would take me 30 hours to read it physically. So, you know, the book feeling 3 times slower, it makes sense. Like, I get that it's building towards something, but I kind of want some payoff. Although I will say, so I'm at the point of the book where Bryce has just kind of tried to escape from the hewn city by going through the tunnels, and you see like all the cool things that maybe her starlight does more than just being light, or like she's got more power than she realizes. Like, obviously it's all a bit loose and like a soft magic system, or at least Bryce's magic is. But then she's, you know, bumped into Nesta, and I think I never really would have thought of pairing those two together, but I think they make a really interesting pairing, and I think it works well to kind of get Bryce to challenge her preconceived notions about the Fae, because Nesta wasn't always Fae, and in some ways, like, she is like that same level of being mixed. Like, she might be 100% high Fae now, but she was a human for the first 22 years of her life, I think it was. But yeah, I really enjoy seeing the two together, and I look forward to more interactions between them. I wouldn't have necessarily paired them. I would have thought we'd get more Reese or Feyre even, but it's good. I mean, I don't have much to say because there hasn't been that much Bryce so far. Like, it's a fairly even split between like Ethan's storyline, Hunt, Rune, and Baxian's storyline, and then Bryce's storyline. Yeah, I'll keep checking back in throughout the night. I've just got to chapter 14, and it's just been revealed that the reason Bryce's cuts weren't healing is because she was deliberately keeping them from healing, and I did not see that coming, and it's so cunning. And literally at the start of the chapter, so I don't know what her plan was in getting the Midgard worm to kind of track her, but I like a nice sneaky surprise. I've just got to the quote that's been on social media. The one that was like, but Bryce began running again, hurtling through the cave back towards Nesta and Asriel, and prayed there was something left for her to save. And I feel like the way that was like put across on social media, it seemed like the reason she was in the cave was to get back to her own world, but no, she's like running to save them. Oh, I'm having such a good time with this book. I think because like I enjoy the Crescent City books anyway. I didn't love the direction that Sky and Breath went in. Just because it felt like it kind of went science fiction out of nowhere. But like Crescent City's a good time. And like the ACOTAR series is just candy for my brain. So the two of these merging together, I really like enjoy that combination, basically. So yeah, I'm having a good time. Also, like I'm 18% of the way through, so like almost a fifth really. And like the fact that there's not even been the sniff of like any kind of smut, like I I'm not prudish. I do like spice in my books, but the way that Maas writes smut doesn't really particularly work for me anymore. I think a couple of years ago, before I discovered authors that can write really good smut, I maybe felt differently. But right now, I just think Maas's smut is like cheesy and reminds me of, in the words of my best friend, like 70s porn with like it almost feels like a plumber turning up going, I've got just the tool you need. Like that's how Maas's smut reads to me. So like I'm not opposed to a Maas book that doesn't have smut. Like I'm sure there will be smut. Like there's probably going to be a bang fest when Hunt and Bryce get back together, and no doubt Rune and Lydia will get on as well, but like it's nice to not have it at the moment. Okay, so obviously you go into books with your own interpretation, and like so I haven't recorded the intro to this video yet, so I'm gonna say presumably in the intro to the video I mentioned that Maas is somewhat of a controversial figure, and one of the things that's controversial about her is her comments in the past about Israel and the way that she seems to have aligned herself with Zionism. She hasn't made comments in recent years, so it's a bit difficult to say if she's done the work unpacking or not. And I am someone who is prone to give people the benefit of the doubt, and that's not always a good thing. So something that I noticed when I was reading House of Earth and Blood was that there's a comment made about enforced military service and the length of time that enforced service lasts is 3 years. And, you know, it could be pure coincidence, but like I read that and I looked up like countries that have I don't know the proper name, like compulsory conscription, and like there's different rules regarding gender and faith or whatever, but as far as Israel's concerned, if you are a Jewish male, there's some exceptions for different sects of Judaism, but if you're a Jewish male, it's 3 years at the age of 18, which interestingly is also 3 years in House of Earth and Blood. And the way that this enforced conscription was mentioned in House of Earth and Blood was in somewhat of a critical way. And I'm kind of like, the thing is, authors will be hypocrites. They'll write whole fantasy worlds saying something and then not realizing how much it reflects the real world. Well, I'm reading this and, coming out from my own biases, my own interpretation, it very much feels like there's some unpacking happening where, Maas is kind of saying, like, after all of the horrible things that happened in the past, it's then horrendous that that Israel then goes on to do what it has done. I mean, so I'm very, I know my own views, but I feel like I don't have the proper language to convey this. But I think what I'm trying to say is that the themes and narratives that seem to be present in this story do seem to reflect, and obviously this is only my interpretation, and I could be giving Maas far more credit than she deserves. But it seems to imply that it's almost like a criticism of Zionism. And whether that's true or not, I don't know, but there's just there's little lines. Let me see if I can find one. So it says, they just overthrown their conquerors. Now they would turn conqueror too. And I mean, to me, in my mind, especially with the, there's been a few things that make me think, okay, is this kind of based on the Middle East and stuff? So there's a couple of things about Lunathian / Crescent City. One of them is that it's based on a place that's as in within the story it says that when it was created, it was based on somewhere that was lush and developed and had olive trees, and olive trees are something that very much can be connected with Palestine. So there's that. There's the fact that the map of Lunathian almost has the Star of David in the pattern of the roads. I feel like there's some other things, and Maas is a Jewish author. She is going to input her Judaism into her work, and I think that's a beautiful thing. I really liked the way that in Throne of Glass we had the gathering and laying of stones at graves, and things like that. Yeah, I feel like I'm not properly conveying what I'm saying, but it makes me wonder. But also, this could be me just giving her way too much credit, which I've already said. I'm so sorry. I've just completely rambled here. But it's something to consider, I guess, with this book. Because the thing is, I'm going in being I know what I'm getting with a book by Maas, and it's exactly what I've got. As a more general update, it is now 20 to 6, and let me find my place. I think I'm literally at the start of chapter 20. Apparently I'm on page 204, which makes me a quarter of the way through the book, which is better progress than I expected, honestly. And the thing is, in like 2.5 hours, I should have the audiobook available to me. So I feel like I'm making pretty good time on this book. I don't know. Let's see. There's a part of me that's kind of annoyed that the whole like Fendi Air thing was just a ruse, like to kill her off after all this like build up. I'm like, ugh. Like I get Ethan was like destined to be an alpha, but really? Really? So I've just gotten to the end of part 1 and like Bryce is heading home now. And like whilst I didn't dislike her interactions with Azrael, Amryn, Reese and Nesta, like it was fun to see. I can't help but feel kind of disappointed that like there wasn't that much point. Like, yes, she learned a bit more, yes, she got a bit more power, but like I'm 33% of the way in the book, and that's a lot of book for not that much to have come out of her trip to Prithian. Like, it'll be interesting to see if there's any ramifications for that in the next Akatar book, but I don't know. Like, I was enjoying it while she was there, but like, it just felt like it was like, oh, okay, time to go home, bye bye, and like that was it. And I was like, oh, that's a bit of a shame. So like, I'm simultaneously enjoying it and also like the payoff for some of the bigger moments in Sky and Breath just isn't there. Like the fact that the Fendi heir got killed accidentally, but still got killed. And then the fact that her trip to Prithian didn't really amount to that much. It's just a bit eh. I don't know why it surprised me, but it surprises me that there's literal houses for like the House of Earth and Blood, Sky and Breath, Flame and Shadow, etc. Like 3 books in, I didn't realise they weren't figurative allegiances. Like there are physical headquarter houses and clubhouses. Just a random thing that I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. It's a little after 8 a.m. now, and that means the audiobook's available. I've gotten to 37% or chapter 34, which is a lot more than I expected to get through in 8 hours. It's 308 pages, so like considerably more actually. It's 100 more pages than I thought I'd get to. So I guess by the time I finish this update, the audiobook will have downloaded and I can switch to that format. I feel like there's definitely moments that I'm enjoying more. I'm enjoying the way that Lydia broke them out of prison, and that I'm not sure what to make of Ethan's storyline. Like, I don't know, I feel conflicted about like the resurrection trope with the Fendi heir. Like, it feels kind of on brand for Maas. Like, she can't just kill off a character, or at least can't kill off a character that seems significant, but like, I think it would have been a more interesting story. And I guess it still could be, like, if the Fendi heir isn't resurrected, like Ethan becoming the Alpha who was meant to be, as was hinted in the previous book. So, I don't know. And like, I still think like we're gonna see people dying. Like, of course we're gonna see people dying. But who that is, I don't know yet. Like, as much as like I don't want Rune to die, I could totally see him dying. And like Baxian, almost 100%. I don't think he's going to make it to the end of the book. And like Lydia as well. Basically, a lot of the characters, I think, could potentially die, but also I know that Maas often doesn't have the teeth when it comes to such things. Yay, we're getting some Jesper backstory, and it's really cool. And not anything I would have ever expected, so yay! Okay, so I'm a little past the halfway point, and like, here's the thing, when you read a Maas book, all you're expecting is candy for the brain. You kind of know exactly what you're going to get when you pick up a book from her. But like at this point, like you are getting a tiny bit of new information, but a lot of it feels kind of repetitive. It's like, because it's got multiple characters and stuff, it's spending a lot of time getting each character to learn the same information from a different person. So it's a bit like, yeah, I already know this. I've known this for ages. Why do I need to see this character learning this information when I've already seen 3 other characters find this out? Like, it's not that I'm disliking the book. I'm just like, that could have picked up the pace and streamlined the book a bit if it had been edited down there. Chapter 50, and we have some smart. I would have been fine if this whole book didn't have any. Like, it doesn't feel like fitting to the plot kind of thing. But whatever, it's an SJM book, so I guess you get what you get. But also, I think it's hilarious that her adult books seemingly have less smart than her YA books, which I know are kind of retrospectively now marketed as new adult, but still, like, there's a lot more smart in ACOTAR and a bit more smart in Throne of Glass than there is in like any of the Crescent City books. Like, I don't know. Like, House of Sky and Breath definitely has a bit more smart, but there's really not that much across these 3 books. I mean, yeah, I'm on chapter 50, so I've got, half a book left. But to get to chapter 50 and it's the first time that there's a sex scene is actually kind of hilarious to me. Excuse me? Hun is Apollyon's son? That doesn't feel like it lines up. And I also don't think that's going to be the final thing. I think it's going to be a fake out, but Apollyon's son? What? I really enjoyed Rune giving his father his comeuppance. I mean, death doesn't seem to stick very well in Maas's books, but hopefully this will actually be the Autumn King's death, because it's so satisfying. And like, if it doesn't stick, it would be a shame because it takes away from the moment, but also what's been done to the Autumn King is less than has happened to a lot of other supernatural beings in this world. So like, I wouldn't expect it to actually kill them, but who knows? Who knows? So, as satisfying a moment as it is for Bryce to be like, I'm Queen of the Valbaran Fae and the Avellan Fae, and then like everyone to be like the Midgard Fae or whatever, as satisfying a moment as it is, I can't help but think that Bryce kind of missed the point. Just like, 400 pages ago or whatever, she was like, how did these conquered people then decide they were going to do conquering? And that's literally what she's doing. She's like, oh yeah, we're super oppressed, but I'm just going to make myself queen over everything. Like, bitch, you were so close. You almost got it, and then you just didn't see what you were doing. No. I mean, add into that the fact that in Throne of Glass, there's the suggestion that down the line, Aelin would turn conqueror. And then in the ACOTAR series, like, it's pretty much looking certain that Rhys and Feyre are going to become High King and High Queen at some point. So it's like, awkward. I mean, will Bryce be queen at the end of this book? I don't think so. She doesn't seem like she actually wants to be queen, but she sees it as this feels disgusting to say, a necessary evil to get them to where they need to be. But, I mean, like, I don't know. It feels a bit icky. Well, Ethan's finally become an alpha, which is great, but it just kind of reinforced how annoying his whole storyline was. Like, it just felt like we were putting off the inevitable. We knew the story was going to go that way. So why did we need, like, I don't know, 3/4 of a book of him whining about, oh no, I've killed her. When, like, it was set up in Sky and Breath that he had it in him to be an alpha. So just do that. Don't have this stupid side quest thing. But at least that's one thing tied up now. We've got more Prithian stuff. That makes me happy. Because, as I said earlier, I didn't feel satisfied with what we got at the start of the book. So it's kind of fun to see more of the Night Court folks coming into play, potentially anyway. Not that I think it's going to have massive consequences, but I am shocked that Bryce is like, take my parents in exchange for the mask. Like, that's such a ballsy move. Like, I will say that for this book, like, there's been plenty that's been predictable, but there's also been a decent number of moments that have kind of taken me by surprise and gone, that's really clever. We've got a bit more of a teeny tiny Throne of Glass crossover. The Underking's a Barrow White. Such a curious thing to make him, but I like it, I think. Like, it's like an unexpected way that they cross over, but still fun. I don't know. I feel like I've got no words to properly express how I feel about this book, and this video is probably really disjointed, but that's fun. I'm sorry, what? This whole book takes place over the course of a single week? I mean, that's some really quick mobilizing of your forces. Like, you didn't need to have the line saying it was only a week ago that the Sky and Breath happened. Like, what the fuck? It's so stupid, but I love it. I mean, no one of importance has died yet. I mean, there's still time, but I don't think anyone will. Like, I think Lydia might die, but I don't think we're going to have a big emotional damage death in this book. But then to hope for that from Maas is a lot, to be honest. So I'm sure I've got a full review at the start of this video, but like my final thoughts, like obviously like full spoilers and stuff, because that's what this section of the video is. I enjoyed it. Like, it was far from perfect, but I had a really good time with it. And I really liked that it ended with Bryce getting her Pegasuses. Like, yeah. Such a silly moment, but like I'm so happy for her. I do wish there'd been a little bit more death. Like, I feel like a broken record saying that. Like, it was nice that we got that emotional moment with Jessica, but it would have been nice if someone in the core crew of people died. Like, there was a lot of them, so they definitely could have spared someone to have died. I also feel like there's a lot of kind of loose ends, but that's fine. I'm also intrigued to see if we're gonna get a crossover right back where we actually see Bryce in an Akatar book. But yeah, overall a good time, and it's nice to see where the story's ended, at least for now. So that is my spoiler-free and spoiler-filled thoughts on this book. I don't know. I liked what we saw of Nesta, and it makes me really excited for the next Akatar book. And as I said in my spoiler-free portion of this video, I think this was an enjoyable book, and it was pretty much what you expect from a book by Sarah J. Maas. Could it have been better? Yes. Would I have liked more death and weight, especially considering the kind of supposedly apocalyptic consequences? Definitely. But overall, it was pretty much exactly what you expect when you sign up to read a book by Sarah J. Maas, and it gave just that. Like, I mean, yes, I could see ways that I would improve it, but then it wouldn't be a book by Maas. So, you know, it was a very solid book, and I look forward to hearing thoughts in the comments. Please try and be respectful to not spoil this book for other people in the comments. So feel free to talk in spoilers, but hide it below the read more line. Is that what it's called? But if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. And if you are interested in that video I was talking about at the start of the video, where I go into a bit of why Maas is a bit of a controversial figure, feel free to subscribe. If that's not your thing, that's perfectly fine. But until next time, love you. Bye.